Come on, Livingston, we're gonna go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We're gonna go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, you score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We're gonna
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club. My name's Andy and I'm joined today by Ewan and Callum Brown. Welcome back, Callum. How are you doing?
Oh, very well, thanks. Cheers for having us back on, boys. Hope you are keeping well yourselves.
I'd like to point out that I wasn't asked how I was doing there, so thanks for that, Andy. That's really appreciated, mate.
I see you every week, Ewan. This is like welcoming royalty back to the podcast,
Oh.
bringing Callum on.
Don't geeze
So,
it.
obviously, we're one Callum short. He's still not joining us, probably still nursing his hangover for Saturday. We're recording this on Monday night. We put a wee tweet out saying why we weren't recording it yesterday and why we didn't get the podcast out on Sunday. It was because the two Callums were unfortunately nursing hangovers. So we're just calling that one out. Anyway, we're obviously bringing you this via Zoom. As we all know now, the recent restrictions have caused this. So bear with us. We are trying to bring you the best content we can via Zoom. But coming up this week on the episode, we look back at our game with Motherwell. It's going to be tough to spin that one into something positive for sure. We then answer your questions in Talk Livi question time. And finally, we look ahead to our next league game. And it's a huge one up in Dingwall as we face Ross County on Friday night.
We welcome back Motherwell to Tony Macaroni Arena on Saturday, looking to bounce back from back-to-back defeats. Instead, a performance befitting of the day was to follow as Livy produced a lacklustre display on Halloween. What was a scary performance from the Lions? Where do we go from here? Was there any positives to take from that at all, guys?
Yeah, I'm struggling for positives from it. Generally this season, even the sort of poor results we've came out with some form of positive, but I'm struggling to think of anything at all from the Motherwell game, really. I thought from 1 to 11 we were poor, we looked well off the pace, lack of energy, almost a lack of fight, which is something I wouldn't label Livingston as being. I thought we were bossed all over the park by Motherwell, and let's not forget Motherwell are obviously a good side, but we're at home. I expected us to get in their faces even when things weren't going well, even when they haven't been going well this season. We've at least showed some form of fight, and I didn't see that at all, which was for me the biggest disappointment. I mean, it's really hard to spin anything at all positive from the game other than, in fact, there is nothing that I can think of. Callum, you were obviously there. What did you make of it being there live?
I think what frustrates me the most is Motherwell didn't even need to put in that good a performance. I think they were absolutely bang average as well. I mean, we were worse than bang average. If we're being totally honest, probably our worst performance of the season. Well, definitely our worst performance of the season, if not over the last maybe couple of seasons. As I say, Motherwell probably 2 or 3 clear-cut chances they had, took them both. We didn't really create anything. Maybe you said there, Andy, the games that we have had the poor results and we've sort of done okay, and barring the first 2 against St Mirren and Hibs, which just wasn't us at all. It was sort of back to that. It wasn't a Livingston performance that we've come to expect under Gary Holt. But yeah, it's just a frustrating one. Maybe you could argue maybe the weather plays a part, the wind and things. But again, that's just probably a bit of a scapegoat. But no, it was just really frustrating from start to finish. And yeah, Motherwell deserved winners, but again, didn't really get out of second gear. If I'm being honest, I don't think they were at their best either. So yeah, it's a frustrating one. We really definitely need to have a good look at ourselves, as the manager said. And it's now a massive game on Friday.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bruni. I don't think Motherwell had to get out of second gear to win that game. They've not had to do an awful lot. I'm actually quite glad we're recording this 2 days after, because it's given me a chance to calm down a bit. But the best way I can describe our performance was toothless, absolutely toothless, just all over the park. Normally I can find a positive in our performances, but there was so many things that frustrated me about Saturday's game. I mean, the defending for the 2 goals is pathetic, to be totally honest. Bartley losing the ball middle of the park. Guthrie's been sent for a hot dog for the first, and Kieran Brown, I mean, it's just a complete lacklustre effort to try and get back in and make a block. The second goal, I mean, both Serrano and Brown have turned their back in the wall. Stryjek, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he's seen it late, but I still think he could do more to push that to the side. And then the other one's Jason Holt. Jason Holt standing next to Tony Watt when the free kick's taken, and he stands still. He doesn't react to the ball at all. And there's 4 or 5 players actually just standing round as Watt's the only one alive to it and reacts. And second half, yeah, we had a lot of the ball, but we didn't do anything. Our deliveries into the box were poor. In particular, Serrano, a lot of poor deliveries. He was knocking them straight out of play. I get the weather was really poor. I was out in it on Saturday, so I know just how windy it was. But at the same time, Motherwell had to play the same conditions. So for me, that's not an excuse. But yeah, it's just there were so many things that frustrated me. Even, Bruno, you touched on it early in commentary. Mark O'Hara was playing centre half. He played centre half for them last week. He's naturally a centre midfielder. If I'm the centre forward and Jet, I'd be peeling onto him the entire game. I'd be testing him. He's the weak link in that back 4. Instead, he was kind of pinned up with Declan Gallagher, and we've seen Decky. He's going to win 90% of things in the air, and I think he absolutely strolled through the game. I don't think he really had a challenge throughout the game at all. And there was so many things that were frustrating about the game. And it was, I would say it's probably our worst performance under Hope, because we just genuinely, all over the park, it was so not a Livi performance from what we've expected the last few years.
I hope that it's just a sort of blip, because obviously, again, barring the first 2 games of the season, we have been in pretty much every game, again, no barring Celtic and Rangers. But it's just, it does feel like a blip. It doesn't, because this has sort of come from a wee bit like nowhere in a way. We've obviously lost the last 2 against Rangers and Kilmarnock, but before that, we dominated St Johnstone, we dominated Dundee United, and we had been creating chances even in the games that we hadn't won. I think the most frustrating thing for me is we didn't even create anything. We've got here, written down that we could have played all night and not scored, and that's not been like us at all this season. And now, if you look at stats, we've got the second worst defence in the league, joint with Ross County. Hamilton are the only side they have conceded more goals than us this season, which again, just not like us at all, especially at home. I think we lost 2 games at home last season. That's 4 already. So that's a concern for me, but I don't think we should panic in terms of being involved in a battle down the bottom. I do think that we are good enough and we will bounce back from it, especially if you look at the next 4 games. The next 4 games are absolutely massive for me. But yeah, I'm hoping it's just a blip.
Yeah, listen, what you guys have said, you're spot on. I'm really struggling to put into words how disappointed I was with the performance on Saturday, and I think you have summed it up perfectly well. The goals, it's schoolboy stuff really. The first goal's just I think you used pathetic, and I think that's exactly it. It's just horrendous. I watched it back, and yeah, Bartley's given the ball away, but under difficult circumstances. He's pressed very well. Motherwell have pressed him quite well, and he's had no time to control the ball. If you're being overly critical, you could say that an experienced pro like Bartley should be aware of that situation and take the medicine and boot it out the park, and we set up again. The thing that annoyed me about that goal was just the half-assed attempt from Brown to get back. If you watch it back, he's jogging back into the box. Years gone by, even this season, we've had players busting a gut to get back into position and block the ball and throw themselves in front of the ball. Brown didn't look interested. The second one is even worse. Whether it's a foul or not, personally, I'd be looking for it. If it's for us, I'd be looking for it. But the fact it's right on half time, be strong in the wall. It's went right through the wall. What Brown's doing, I've no idea. I picked up on Serrano as well. Him and Serrano have turned their backs, left the gap. And yeah, I get what you're saying about Stryjek Ewan, but the more I watch it, the more I feel sorry for him a little bit, because as you mentioned, he's seen it really late. He's not expecting it to come through the wall. I think he's probably done pretty well to get his hands on it. And as you said as well, Holt not tracking back. It's just a comedy errors. And for their own, we never looked like getting back into the game. We barely mustered an attack, never mind a shot. Do you think there's too many changes going around in the team? We again almost fiddled with the formation slightly again. Do you think that's affecting us? Are we lacking a style? I know there's a question later on, so I don't want to go into too much just now, but do you think we're just chopping and changing too much? Do you think we really need to get back to basics, which is what the gaffer said?
For me, I just don't think we approached the game. I think we played into Motherwell's hands a little bit with the selection. I touched on it last week that the game away at Fir Park earlier in the season, we were so dangerous when we were attacking because the movement on our kind of three in behind Dykes that night was brilliant. They all have a bit of pace, a wee turn of pace, and they were causing Motherwell all sorts of problems. This is no disrespect to Sibbald. Sibbald's not a wide player, and we're putting him out wide when Forrest has arguably been one of our best players this season.
Yeah, I agree.
And Forrest grabbed a goal that night as well. So I didn't understand that one. How fit Tiffany was. I think Tiffany would have caused them a lot of issues purely by getting them turned, offering different movement. I think, Jet, it was all, he always wants the ball into kind of feet. He doesn't seem to be offering that kind of running behind or anything like that at the channels. So I think he made it very easy for Declan Gallagher in particular. But yeah, there was just a lot of things that were really frustrating. I've been having a debate on Twitter today with folk, and I'm a bit like you, Bruni. I'm not panicking. Right? I'm just frustrated about the game at the weekend. We're only 2 points off we were at this stage last season, so I'm not panicking. But it's the trends that we've got, and that we're conceding really sloppy goals, which we haven't been the last 2-3 seasons, and it's a lot of individual stuff. In fact, at the weekend, it was more of a collective, the defending, because it was players all over the place were poor for the goals. That's the bit that I'm concerned about, is the goals that we're conceding. I think we're capable of scoring in games, take away that Motherwell performance, but yeah, we really need to, as you say, the gaffer said it himself, we need to get back to basics, get back to defending our box with a bit of pride, like we have done the last few years, and make ourselves difficult to beat again. Because I don't think teams are needing to work to get goals against us.
Do you know, sorry Bruni, jumping in there, but there's something else that was slightly baffling to me. Things weren't going our way, and again, I'm not going down the route of management team and all of that. I've seen the debates on Twitter today. I think we're far too early to be looking into that, but the thing that baffled me slightly was the substitutions. I felt like there was nothing happening for us in the game, and we almost made straight swaps in the game. I didn't quite understand the decisions there. Sure, we're 2-0 down, it's not working, make a change to alter the game rather than, sticking to what wasn't working. That to me, that's what happened with the substitutions on Saturday.
Yeah, you've got a point in a way. I think maybe you go two up top. You're chasing the game 2-0 down. I get we're trying to keep the sort of similar system, but again, you mentioned it with Sibbald playing out on the left. He kind of did a job there against Rangers last weekend when Josh Mullen came on. Sort of Sibbald went to the left when Ambrose came off as well at half time. After we'd gone from a 3 to a 4 at the back. But yeah, Forrest I would have probably started as well. But yeah, I don't know. It was just one of those days. I mean, I think you can again, we touched on it earlier. You could maybe alter the formation, go to up top, even just proper go gung ho, put even a centre half up front or whatever. But we just didn't look like scoring, and we didn't threaten them at all.
Callum, you're obviously in and about the club, interviewing the gaffer and interviewing the players and things post-match. What's the mood like around the club just now? Because we obviously can't see what the mood's like. We're always, in the past, we're always going on about what a different sort of atmosphere it is at Livingston compared to other clubs. Is that atmosphere still circulating around the club, or is there a genuine sort of concern, or, the players aren't quite in that sort of jovial mood that they used to be?
No, I think the atmosphere and things are still there. Obviously, I'm only in the club for a game day. I see some players and things after the match, and when we win, it's all highs and things. But when it's a defeat, they're as gutted as me. To be honest, as a fan, they are. You can tell it affects them. The players usually go out after the game for a walk around the park, and it's not. They are as gutted as I think fans are, and they are disappointed in themselves. I don't think there's no real passengers, I would say, at all. I think everybody is in the same boat and things. I think that atmosphere is still there. But again, it's frustrating. Maybe after the Kelly game, you were a bit like, okay, it's Kilmarnock, they're an experienced team. We were sort of not bad. We took the lead, and again, a decision goes against you, maybe things like that. But it was after the game on Saturday where, it's just everyone is flat. The dressing room's flat, and understandably so. Boys are obviously raging and disappointed. It was just the fact that it was not a Livi performance at all, as we've touched on throughout.
I mean, let's not forget when you look at Motherwell. They were the third best team in the country last season. Yeah, of course they've started off poorly this season, but I think that's 4 wins in the spin now for them. So they're obviously picking up. And when you do look at their squad, you could argue that they are better than the position that they are in. And I think between us, I think we'd all agree that they will finish comfortably in the top 6. So, I mean, it's not a result that, okay, the performance was poor. But if we'd lost the game with a good performance, would we be this low, if that makes sense? So it is a tough one, when you look at Motherwell. It's a game last season where we'd be thinking, well, if we can get a draw, does it show how far? I'm going to use the old cliche. Does it show how far we've come that we're disappointed losing to Motherwell?
I don't think it's the fact we've lost the game to Motherwell. I think it's the performance that's more disappointing than anything. I spoke the other week about the Kelly game. I was disappointed with the goals we conceded, but I was quite pleased with the number of chances we created. We still looked a threat during the game. The Rangers game, I was disappointed with the goals we conceded, but again, second half, I was quite happy with how we played. It's the manner of the performance that's the most frustrating thing, especially when we've prided ourselves on our home form and the way we defend. And yeah, it was just there was such a lack of bite about us, and it was just a very alien performance from what we've come to expect. And for me, that's the frustrating aspect. Again, I'll touch on the stuff I've been talking about on Twitter, but I do think some of our fans have this heightened sense of we should be doing better than we are all the time, whilst at the end of the day, every season that we finish 10th and above in this league is a successful campaign. So, as I say, I'm not pressing panic buttons, because as I mentioned, we're 2 points off where we were at this stage last season. And hopefully, if we go and beat Ross County, there you go, we're doing better than we were at this stage last season. So it's amazing what a win could potentially do and turn the mood round, and hopefully that's what we get up in Dingwall on Friday night.
Just quickly before moving on, you touched on it, Ewan, there about the home form. What's gone wrong at home this season so far? Bruni, you mentioned it earlier. It was only two defeats last season, the whole of the season. It's now 4 already this season. 3 results against teams that, well, even all 4 defeats are against teams that we've notoriously done very well at home against. What's gone wrong? Is the crowd? I mean, without making the joke that we don't have many fans, but is it really playing a part? Do the players thrive on having large away crowds there, do you think? And we've not got that, so it's difficult to get themselves motivated for it.
Maybe you could have a point there, but I think that, you look at the 0-0 against Rangers, that's the sort of performance we would put in with a crowd. There, I think that argument goes out the window. I don't know though. It's just it's frustrating. I generally can't put my finger on it. As we say, it's now double already, the defeats at home. I think it was Rangers and Aberdeen last season. Obviously 2 good teams. This season, Kilmarnock, Motherwell, Hamilton and Hibs. Hamilton's probably the only one on paper you look at and you go, that shouldn't be happening. Okay, the other 3 are very established, experienced teams, but again, it's still frustrating to lose games at home and in the manner of those 3 games that we did. But I can't put my finger on it genuinely. Maybe it's the fact that even though we have sort of changed styles, are we too predictable? I mean, I'm not saying that we are, but that's a question that could be posed. Are we too predictable? Do teams now come to Livi when they didn't used to? Maybe the last couple of seasons they didn't look at us as a sort of banana skin. They just turn up and play their own game. Now do they come with a game plan, and do they go, we're going to sit in with a certain formation, we're going to play certain players against Livi because we now know what works against them and we know their weaknesses?
Nah, for me, the home form, as I say, has been frustrating. But I think the team's in a wee bit of a transition. There's a lot of new faces that came in the summer and stuff like that as well. But I think there is a transition from being a bit more direct and kind of going back to front a bit quicker. I think we are trying to play through the thirds a little bit more. And it's maybe to do with that little bit of transition in the style of play. That more mistakes are happening because we're not maybe playing the percentage ball all the time and stuff like that. We're getting caught in possession a little bit more because we're trying to play through the thirds. It's maybe a bit of that. But as I say, I'm not concerned. I'm just bitterly disappointed with the manner of the performance on Saturday. I think, if anything, we've got a better all-round squad than we've probably had in years. There's such strength and depth in the squad that it doesn't really concern me. I think we've got a better squad than other teams around us, and I think it was round about this stage last season that we started picking up results again and went on a really good run of form. There was about a 12-game run. I think we lost 2 games, 1 or 2 games. So I'm confident, as you said, Bruni, earlier on, the next 4 games are huge. It's all teams that are in around us. I've had a pretty tricky start to the season. So hopefully we can, a bit similar to last year, start picking up a few wins and pulling ourselves up the table.
So we asked you to get in touch with some questions for us for this week's edition of Talk Livi Question Time. We'll just get right into them. So first up, a question on the squad. So the squad on paper looks better than last season's, as you've touched on just there, with more attacking options from the bench, more strength and depth. But when we get onto the pitch, we're ranked rotten and slumming down the table. What do we think the cause of this is?
I'm not quite sure rank rotten is the right term and slumming it down the table. Okay.
Yeah, they are not my words, to clarify.
No.
Before I get started.
No.
I feel when you put out the Talk Livi Question Time directly after a poor performance at home, it seems to provoke language such as that and frustration. But yes, to be very clear, none of the 3 of us have used those words. I mean, Callum Waugh might, but in fact, I think it was Waugh that sent it in.
okay, as we've clarified, I think rank rotten is a bit OTT, slumming it down the table. Okay, we're sitting 10th just now, but we're only, 3, 4, 5 points off of 5th place or whatever it is. So, I mean, a lot can change. The squad, you've said it, Ewan, I think we've all said it is better this season. More attacking options for on the bench. I'm not overly convinced by that. I mean, we've signed a few players that, yeah, okay, on paper they're down as strikers, but they're untested at this level. So do we know we've got better attacking options than last season? I'm not convinced. Having said that, we'll not be sure until we give them a chance in the league. What do we think the cause of this is? I mean, there's almost an argument that we've maybe changed too much. I mean, yeah, okay, the squad's better, and we kind of spoke about this the other day, Ewan. We've signed, 8, 9, 10, 11 players this season, whereas we've only lost, in the first team, Dykes, Lawless. Was there a need to make all those changes? I'm not convinced. Yeah, okay, you want to progress as a club every year, you want to sign the best players that you can, and I think we've probably looked at it and thought, we've signed good players, but whether we've just done it too quickly and signed too many and they're not gelling as quick as we'd hoped for, possibly that's the cause of the sort of form at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think you summed that up pretty well. So, next question is it time that we gave Gary Malley his chance? I think that one's from friend of the podcast, Rory Walker.
Yeah, I think this was a tongue-in-cheek question, to be honest.
Tongue-in-cheek? There's absolutely nothing tongue-in-cheek about it. Give the big man his chance. He's bided his time brilliantly. He deserves his opportunity, the big man. He's the PR king at Livingston as well. Marvin Bartley's pouring himself out to BBC Radio Scotland and Sports Scene every week to try and catch up with Gary after Gary's making it over in Brazil and stuff like that. So, I mean, the media attention we get if Big Gary goes between the sticks as well would be fantastic. I'd get him in. Absolutely no hesitation.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. Maybe we can put a poll up on Twitter. Should Gary Malley be on your number one?
Tell you what, the last poll involving Gary got quite a response. So there you go. We might get a few more followers out of it.
Absolutely. Next question. What's our best starting 11 if everyone is fit? And what is our best formation when everybody is fit?
For me, I would still say 4-2-3-1. I think folk just react after a performance at home that's pretty poor, or just a general poor performance, and they start questioning everything. But I think there's a lot of games this season we've played 4-2-3-1. We've been well in the games. It's just been a combination of individual errors at the back and maybe not taking chances at one end. I think we've still been well in games and performing relatively well. I would still play 4-2-3-1. For me, I would have Robbie between the sticks, as controversial as that is for some of our fans. Back four would be Devlin, Ambrose, Guthrie, Serrano. I think that's our strongest back four. I'd probably have Bartley and a toss up between Holt and Sibbald sitting. I think Sibbald's added a lot of kind of doggedness and being able to break the game up. He's added that to his game over the last season or so. Three and behind, I think I would probably have, again, it would be a toss-up with Robinson or Josh Mullen. I'm a big fan of Robbo, Pittman, Forrest. And then up top, personally, just now, I'd have Tiffany. I think he's out of the striking options we've seen this season, I think he's been the most effective. I think he's offered us the most. So yeah, that would probably be my team.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with that, to be honest. Maybe, I mean, we'll maybe come on to it when we talk about the Ross County game, but there's the debate of maybe does Ambrose come back in? Obviously, I'm not 100%. I'm just guessing. If I'd imagine he was maybe rested or dropped because of maybe the goal that Rangers' first goal obviously comes from him losing the ball, and Brown came in with Guthrie. In my opinion, I think it's a toss-up between Ambrose and Fitzwater for who plays with Guthrie. I think Guthrie's our best centre-half, in my opinion. I think it's more of a balance when you have a right and a left-footed centre half. Kieran Brown's obviously left-footed as well as John Guthrie, so maybe the two left-footed centre halves doesn't work. I mean, that's just an opinion, a personal preference of mine. So I would quite like to see Fitzwater back in again for the Ross County game, just personally because I don't think he's featured since the defeat at Aberdeen. I think he came off with an injury that game. He featured in the FA Cup game, I think, against Edinburgh City, but in the league he's not featured since that game. I think that was way back in August, maybe early September. So I'd quite like to see him back in, or we bring Ambrose back in. But yeah, I agree with you, and as well, I really like Scott Robinson on the right, but Josh Mullen. Again, I think it was Davy Martindale that touched on it when we signed Josh Mullen, that we've been sort of trying to replace Josh for a couple of seasons as a natural right-footed winger, and we couldn't, and he's now come in. So hopefully he can add to the team as much as I like Robinson. But yeah, I would totally agree with the rest of you and team.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to try to be overly controversial here. I would stick with 4-2-3-1 as well. I think it's the tried and tested. It was the formation that took us to 5th in the league last season. If it's not broken, don't try and fix it, as the old saying goes. Do I think Robbie is a better keeper than Max? Yes, I do. Do I think he deserves to be playing on current form? No. So I would have Max in goals at the moment. I think the same back four, Devlin, Guthrie, Ambrose and Serrano for me is the four that I would go with. The other one that again could be put down as controversial is the club captain, Marvin Bartley. I don't think he's been quite at it this season. Sibbald came out the team despite having such a great start to the season. He's not really had a look in. I would have Sibbald in there alongside Holt. I think Holt's been a tremendous addition. I think Holt and Bartley are similar type players. So I think I would have Sibbald and Holt in there. And then, the other one is the tough one that we've all kind of struggled with, is the Robinson-Mullen debate. I think there's no question that Pittman and Forrest are in there. And I agree with Tiffany up front. I think he's been the most effective as well. So the one that sort of, yeah, it's a kind of 50-50 with Robinson and Mullen. I always feel we're better with Robinson in the team, but Mullen offers that bit more attacking flair, that willingness to get forward and out wide and get crosses into the box. So I'm going to go Robinson just now, just because I think we've been better with him. But yeah, that could go either way. That was tough one to choose. That, I think, tough one.
The next question we have is the team facing an identity crisis? Some games we see a direct approach similar to 18-19, while other games we see the team trying to play it through the midfield, especially with Holt in the team. I kind of touched on that earlier. I think there is a bit of a transition in the way we're playing. I think we are trying to play a bit more through the thirds. I think if you go and look at our stats for the majority of games this season as well, I think we've outpassed and we've had more possession than quite a lot of teams. I think one of the most striking ones was up at Pittodrie. I think we had about 100 more passes in Aberdeen and we had about 55% of the ball. I mean, how many teams will go to Pittodrie and dominate the ball like that? So I think there is a transition in the way we are playing. It's something that I've always said I think we've struggled with in the past, is when we are behind in games and the onus is on us to take the game to teams, I think we struggle a little bit in terms of trying to break teams down. And I think it is something you've seen this season. We've been opening teams up a bit more through a bit of football rather than, just playing off of seconds all the time. So I wouldn't say it's an identity crisis. I think it's a transition. It's, it happens with teams. Teams want to try and progress. And I think that's something we are trying to do this year. I think we're trying to add more to our game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I get why the question's been asked, and I get where it's coming from, because there is definitely a stark contrast to the way we're playing this season compared to previous seasons. I don't think there's any doubt about it. you mentioned it there, and we mentioned it earlier in the season about the more possession-based football. I think out with the Hibs game and maybe the Rangers and Celtic games, we have had more possession than every other team. People will argue possession doesn't win games, goals do, but I think we have been far more threatening. You've mentioned it quite a lot, Ewan, in terms of our away games. We look far more likely to score goals, far more likely to get points away from home the way we're playing. It is a transition. I think more so that I think we need to combine the two. So yeah, we're transitioning into a more passing-based team when we've got the ball, but for me, we're not being nasty enough when we've not got the ball. Previous seasons, you could argue, we've went long, played in the final third. We've done it there and then. This season, we're passing it through the phases, but when we lose the ball, we're far too easy to come up against. So, okay, opposition haven't got as much of the ball, but when they've got that ball, they're causing us far more problems with that 40% possession than what they did in previous seasons. And I think that comes down to not being nasty enough, not being clever enough when we've not got the ball.
Yeah, no, I think these are spot on. To be fair, I agree with you, and in terms of, I think we've looked a lot better this season. And in a way, you said as well, Andy, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think we obviously with fifth last season, we got that playing the 4-2-3-1, playing some nice football at times. And I think we are a lot more exciting to watch this season with the 4-2-3-1. Certainly, I look back to St Johnstone. We scored some pretty nice goals. Two nice goals again against Dundee United. We're knocking the ball about well, creating a lot of good chances. Sometimes you are forced, maybe with other teams' tactics and things. Even again, I don't want to go back to it and use it as a scapegoat, but I mean the wind was horrific and it was raining and stuff at the weekend. And sometimes maybe when teams are sat in and difficult to break down, maybe being more direct is the option. But I think certainly the way forward is to sort of play the nice passing football that we have been doing. I think that the management team obviously want to do that as well. You look at that with the players we brought in. I think you touched on it with Jason Holt earlier. We've got Sibbald, Bartley, guys that enjoy passing the ball. Mullen and Forrest down the wings. They're not guys that will get in less against maybe the big teams. Against like the likes of Rangers and Celtic, where you're not going to have the ball. We will need to go direct. But I think the signings and what we've got. You look at the front four maybe of the Dundee United game. I think it was Robinson, Pittman, Forrest and Tiffany. That's we don't need to go direct. I think that's obvious. That they're arguably I think 5'6", 5'7", probably the guys. Obviously not wanting to offend them, calling them short or anything, but they're
because I'm 5'8", Bruni, so I'm probably about the same weight as all of them, to be honest.
No. I what I'm meaning by that is I just think that the way we've recruited and the way that we're set up just is perfect for sort of play down the wings or sort of try and play through the thirds as Ewan's been mentioning. And I wouldn't say it's an identity crisis at the moment, but I think we will come good.
So yeah, next question then. We got loads of questions, so if we don't get to your one, we apologise. Will Max, obviously Stryjek, be Robbie's replacement long term, or will we look to add a new keeper to take the number 1 jersey?
Well, I mean Max has signed a 3-year deal and Robbie's on loan. I think so. Max is long term. I think Robbie was always brought in as the number 1 for the season, and I think Max was brought in after him. I'm going to assume that he was made aware that he would have to challenge Robbie for the number 1 jersey. I've not seen enough of Max to go, do I see him as our goalkeeper, our first choice goalkeeper going forward for the foreseeable future. He's had a couple of very assured performances. Bruni, I know you would have been at the pre-season games. I've watched the highlights, but there was a couple of mistakes he made in those games. So by no means is he the finished article. This is why I always find the criticism of Robbie so, annoying. He's a young keeper. He's still learning his trade, but seems to get highlighted every time. He makes a minor mistake. But yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, you've got the young lad, Brian Schwake out on loan at Linlithgow Rose. I think he's a long-term project as well. Obviously playing kind of in the juniors just now, and I'm sure they'll stagger his progression. So it might be a bit of time before we see him kind of near the first team. But because Robbie's on loan, I assume they'll probably bring in another keeper next year. But they kind of did that with Ross Stewart. You know, Liam Kelly left and Ross Stewart was kind of put in as number one for the start of the following season. So maybe that'll be the case with Max. Max has been here longer. He'll be seen as the number one to start the next season, and anyone that comes in would be challenging him for that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think obviously with as you can debate all night about who starts out over Robbie and Max. I think at the minute Max has the jersey. I don't think he could really be, could have done much for the 2 goals, I think, at the weekend. Robbie, in my opinion, is at the minute the better goalkeeper, but for obviously the Ross County game, which we'll come on to, I think Max should be starting. I don't think you can drop him for that. But yeah, long term, obviously, when Robbie's loan deal expires, Max, as you said, Ewan, is at the club. I think we will bring in someone else to challenge him, maybe not as number one, but to challenge him certainly, because then, Ross Stewart, who's out on loan at the moment, not sure what the long-term plans are for him. I think, again, you touched on Brian. He's at Linlithgow Rose, won't be anywhere near, I don't think, at the minute, the Premiership standard. And Gary Maley as well, I don't think will himself, be expecting to contend for a number one jersey in the Premiership. But at the minute, it's good to see. It's good that we've got 2 very good goalkeepers, in my opinion, pushing each other. I'm not wanting to look that too far into the future for a long-term replacement when Robbie does leave. But I think at the moment, Max and Robbie, it's good to see that them both pushing each other, and hopefully it inspires both of them to put in good performances. I think I'd seen, there's obviously the debate between the 2 of them, this mystical clause or whatever, that Robbie's got to start every game or something. That's been blown out the water this weekend. Just doesn't exist. Some fans think that we've got a obligation to start McCrory. Is just nonsense. He made a mistake, unfortunately, against Kilmarnock for the 3rd goal, and to be fair, was probably quite rightly dropped. But Max has come in, did all right at Ibrox. Again, hasn't put a foot wrong. So I think we just need to support whatever goalkeeper is in goals. At the moment, it's Max. If Max makes a mistake and Robbie comes back in, I think we need to get behind Robbie as much as we are with Max.
This question is very easy for me. I think if we're being consistent here, if there's a goalkeeper out there in the summer that's better than what we've got, and we sign him, then that's how we should be doing. Try to progress as a football club. We need to try and bring in the best players that are possibly out there. So I think the gaffers said it as well. If there's players out there that's going to make us better, and we can do a deal to bring them in, then we'll do that regardless of who we've got. It's obviously too early to tell if Max, like you said, is going to be a long-term number one for us. But like I say, very easy. If there's someone out there that's better than Max in the summer and we sign them, then why not go with them? So an easy one for me.
Yeah, so the next question we had is, will the club still be here next season if COVID blackout continues? What are our thoughts on that, guys?
Well, we're not obviously financial experts, and we don't know the ins and outs of the football club's finances, but I think it's realistic to say that it can't go on forever. I don't think that's just Livingston Football Club. I think that's right across the board. I don't think football clubs have unlimited amounts of cash that they can continue to live without fans, especially in this country. I think in Scotland we rely highly on the gate money that we receive. Will we still have a club? I mean, who knows? As I say, I don't think it can go on forever. If it does, then the likely answer is no. But that'll be the same for every other club in the country. unless there's some sort of plan afoot by the government or whoever. But we don't really want to go into politics on Talk Livi.
So I'll jump straight into the politics of it. You mentioned it, Andy. I think the stat is 40% of clubs in Scotland, and certainly their income comes from, through the turnstiles. So that's almost 50% of your income as a club taken away from you, and it's out with your hands. So, yeah, obviously can't go on any longer. The thing that I think every football fan gets really frustrated at is you've got theatres open and you've got folk going into cinemas to watch live games of football. And how's that safer than sitting in an open air stadium, socially distanced? I don't think it. If someone can give me an answer to that, then I'll happily eat my words. But it just looks like shite to me. And I think the government, for me, are not doing enough to protect football clubs. I think football clubs play a massive part in communities and stuff like that. You can see us over the last few years, we've really started to kind of integrate into the community of West Lothian again, after a number of years of maybe mistrust after the club being mismanaged. But I think the government needs to do a bit more to protect football clubs, because they're not doing it just now. And I think there's a reluctance to help football clubs as well, especially when a lot of their income is based on folk being in attendance to watch games. So, yeah, I think obviously the Dykes money will is a very welcome income for the club. But I think in terms of folk would be sitting going, I mean, Andy, I remember you talking about spending a fee for a player. I think that money is just more or less going to make sure the club's going to, make it through this season with the losses we're going to make with crowds not being in the ground. So, yeah, I think obviously it can't go on, but I do think we've got the right people running the club. Me and you have touched on this. We know John Ward to speak to, and I trust folk like him that are running the club just now to kind of see it through this difficult period.
Yeah, no, not much to add on that really. Just sort of echo what you say. Final question for us again. Big thanks to everyone that sent in questions. Final one: are we underperforming with the squad that we have? We've touched on obviously the strength and depth and things that we've got. And what should be the realistic target for this squad?
I mean, there's a debate to be had on this question, to be fair, because I know what Ewan's going to say. I mean, he's been very consistent with what the target is, etc. For me, we are underperforming with the squad we've got. I feel like we should be doing better with the squad. We all predicted us to be finishing sixth this season, and to be fair, that's still within the realistic possibility. So it's hard to say if we're underperforming right now. We can only kind of answer that question near the end of the season. For me, the target should ultimately be top six with the squad we have, and I know that's been. I want to be very careful in terms of over-egging the pudding slightly, because, yeah, okay, 10th place, I'd be absolutely thrilled with staying in the league, no doubt about. But with the squad that we've assembled, looking at other teams, for me, we have a top six squad there. And if we don't make the top six, for me, that's a slight underachievement. And that might be controversial for some, but when I look at other teams and I look at the squad we've got, I don't think that's unrealistic to target that.
I mean, don't get me wrong, right? I was having this debate again on Twitter today, and I think some folk were seeing me as being really negative, saying every season that we stay in this league is an achievement, is a successful season. But let's be realistic, we've got the second lowest budget in the division by some distance. How is that not an achievement each season staying in the league? I think a lot of our fans have, because of the fifth place finish last season and the last few years, have, as I say, their expectations have gone through the roof and they've lost maybe a sense of reality. I agree with you, Andy. I do think we have a very good squad, and I think it could. I do think it can be doing in a better league position than it is. But at the same time, I'm realistic, and if that squad finishes 10th, I'm delighted, because the ultimate goal for us is to stay in this league for as long as possible and protect the long-term future of the club. Every season that we're in this league, goes towards keeping this club here for the long term. So, you know, I do think there's a sense of some of our fans kind of over expectations, but there is an element of me that goes, yeah, I do think we have a better squad, but I do think we'll start picking up results because of the squad we've got, and I do think we've got a good team on the park. So, yeah, I think there is a sense of maybe underachieving, but at the same time, if you gave any Livy fan with a bit of common sense the league position we are currently sitting in at the end of the season, I don't think there would be any of them that would be disappointed.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you. I get what both of you are saying. I think I probably more lean towards you. You know, again, I said at the start of the season I'd bite your hand off for a 10th place finish, but to be fair, I also had us down as 6th. I think we are good enough to get that final top 6 spot. If we're assuming it's Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, Hibs and Motherwell that occupy the other. I do think that we are good enough to stay out of a relegation battle. For me, it's between Hamilton, St Mirren and Ross County. I think the three of them will, well, I'm hoping the three of them get cut adrift and we're in with the likes of Dundee United, Kilmarnock and St Johnstone. I think we are good enough to compete with those teams and battle it out for that final top 6 spot. But again, it's a difficult one because we are, I mean, you could argue we are underperforming. But, I mean, it's a difficult one because I sound like I'm sitting on the fence. But I'm not. It's not a disgrace that we're not going to finish 6th. It's not, pitchforks out, it's embarrassing, etc., etc. I would be happy with anywhere between 6th and 10th, and I think that the squad is very good, and we are playing some nice stuff at the minute, despite the recent results. If you look at the season as a whole, we've done okay. It's probably an average season. Again, 2 points off where we were this time last season, and we finished 5th. So I think we just need to all relax a little bit and remember that the game is 38 games. We've only played 13 of them. That's only a third of the season, and we're 4 points off the relegation zone. So I think a bit of perspective is needed, and not to remember where we came from as such. But I think we'll be more than fine, and I think we'll go on to do pretty well this season.
Here's a quick question for me then, just before we finish. Last season
Andy, sorry, you need to tweet in your questions and on Facebook. Come on, you can't just jump in with questions like that. That's bloody rude. Make everyone else do that.
Last season we finished 5th. Has that skewed our ambition slightly? If we'd finished the season last season and we'd finished 8th in the end, okay, we finished 5th, but if the season went on and we went on a bad run at the end of the season, we finished 8th, do you think there would be such a hurrah over our performances and our form and our points tally at this stage this season?
I think there wouldn't be as much scrutiny on it if we'd come 8th and we're in where we are just now. I think the fact that we have finished 5th, who's to say that we wouldn't still have? We still could. I think we still would have finished in the top 6 personally. But I think the fact that if you look at it, then 5th, and now again, as I mentioned, still early days, but we are 10th in the league. I think if you were to look at that come the end of the season and we are in 10th or we are 9th and we're below 5th, it does look like on paper a negative. It does look like maybe we've got worse or we haven't improved. You're looking to improve, build on each season. The only thing better than 5th, 4th, 3rd, etc. But it's a tight league. It's a very, very tight league, and I think out with the top 2, anybody can beat anybody else. So I think that if we had, it's a really difficult question. But I just think that we will be fine. I don't think that we're not overachieving, we're not underachieving. We're just doing what's expected of us, I think.
I don't think the club as such has expectations that they should be finishing in the top 6 every season. And I don't think the gaffer has that either. I mean, we chatted to him at the start of the season, Bruni, and his approach was 1 point better than last season. That's progress. He said that the season before. He's been very consistent with that. He was bitterly disappointed last season because Callum Carson pointed out that he didn't reach 45 points. the magical number he was aiming for because of the curtailed season. But again, that'll be what he's aiming for. He's been very consistent in saying that. He's never came out and gone, we're a top 6 side. That's what we're aiming for this season. Very consistent in that, staying in this league is the most important thing, and then see where we can go from there. The quicker we get that done, it takes pressure off the team and they can start looking at other objectives type thing. So I think that was pretty similar last year when we reached the kind of winter break and we were sitting in the top 6, that we were able to kind of reassess a little bit and look a bit further ahead and maybe push on. So I think that's exactly what they'll be doing. They'll be looking to pull ourselves up the table, and the quicker we get to, being safe, mathematically safe, we can start looking at other targets.
Yeah, it's really good questions this week for the Talk Livi question time. Thanks again for getting in touch and sending those questions in. Hopefully we've answered them. Well, we have answered them as best as we can. And apologies again if we'd missed your question, but obviously we've just so many sent in, we couldn't get through them all. But we'll do this again because it always is quite an enjoyable section. Always good to get the listeners involved. So yeah, thanks again for sending them in. Finally, on this week's episode, we're going to look ahead to our next game. I don't think they come much bigger than this right now. It's a trip to Dingwall to face Ross County. Both teams in pretty awful form going into this. Is this game a must not lose given how things have been going recently for both sides? What do you think, boys? A must not lose or a must win in this one?
I think because it's going into the international break type thing, I always think it's better to go into that with a bit of a buzz. I know we've got the Betfred Cup games still to play, but in terms of the league action, it will be curtailed for a couple of weeks. So for me, I see this as a must win. I think Ross County have been pretty poor. I know they won their opening couple of games, but they've only scored something like 2 goals from open play this season. And as you mentioned earlier, Brunei, they've got joint worst defence with us, and I saw some of the defending for their goals at the weekend, and it doesn't look like that's improving anytime soon. So I think it is a massive game, and I think because we're playing slightly better away from home this season, I think it's a game we should really target for 3 points as well, and it would help us. It would mean we leapfrog Ross County in the league as well and get a bit of buzz going about the place again. So yeah, I see it as a must win, and I think it'll set us up nicely for this run of games that we've got kind of between basically this month. So yeah, I see it as a must win, but I think we're more than capable of beating Ross County. We already have done this season.
I don't think a point's an awful result, but I would obviously like all 3. I think we are good enough to beat them. I think, in my opinion, Ross County are probably the worst team that we've played this season. I don't think they really offered much at all in the game that we played against them. And again, if you look at last season as well, we put 4 goals past them on 2 occasions. Okay, we've got different players and things this year, but I just think that we are on paper a better side than them. And again, we look at their form; they're really struggling at the minute. Similar defensive problems as us, but I think something's got to give. I think that we've been waiting for a game in which we dominate and we create those chances. We mentioned, okay, this weekend we didn't create anything at all of note, but there's been games where, off the top of my head, Hamilton and things like that, we've created chances and we haven't got anything from the game. Even Aberdeen away from home, and the performance has been there, and we haven't put the result to match. But I think there'll be one game that we'll go out there and we'll put in the performance, and we will get that result. We'll maybe get a 2 or a 3-0. We'll get a comfortable win. I think it'll be Friday night. I just have that feeling. I think we'll win comfortably on Friday night because I think we're the better side, and I hope I'm right.
So do I. Yeah, just to go back to what you were saying, I think looking at the form, both teams are in a bit of a slump. I think Ross County 1 win in 8 so far, only 1 win in 6 at home, which gives us some kind of hope that our away form can improve. I think, again, away form, despite performances and what was said earlier, feeling a lot better away from home. They've not exactly picked up in terms of results. I think 1 win and 6 away for us. So something's got to give in the game. 1 win at home for Ross County, 1 win and 6 away for us. So something's definitely got to give. Again, defensively, I think they've conceded 12 goals at home and we've only scored 4, I think it is. And we've conceded 11 away. So there's definitely goals in the game as well, I think. Ross Stewart's always one that confuses me because I don't particularly rate him as a player. I don't think he's all that, but he always causes a bit of problems. And now that I've said that, he's liable to score, even though he's only scored 2 goals this season. He started off really well in the league, but I think he's not scored since the 3rd game of the season. So if we can defend properly, if we can get back to basics and do the basics correctly, then there's no reason why we can't go up there and get a result. I think there's a few question marks over how we're going to go up there and play. I think mainly the striking and defensively for us. Do we stick with what we went with, or do we change it? Me personally, I think Jet's flattered to deceive. I don't think he's been very good at all, to be perfectly honest. And I get he's not played a lot of football, but at this stage in the season and also how big a game it is, I don't think we can take a chance on getting a guy fit. I think we go back to Tiffany if he's available. And I think Brown was bitterly disappointing against Motherwell. I think he has to drop back out, whether it be Fitzwater or Ambrose. They've to come back in. And, it would not surprise me, like we touched on earlier, in terms of our best 11, if we put Robinson in there to add that little bit of experience. But then you've got the caveat of Josh Millen returning to his former club and hoping to impress. So it's a difficult one. Lots of sort of debating going on there, just with myself. I don't know what you boys think.
I think the gaffer, when we have performances like that, he typically does make changes. So I can't see the same 11 taken to the park on Friday night. I think there will be lots of changes. For me, I think if we go back to being a bit more direct and getting balls in the box and stuff like that, I think Ross County really struggle with that. I think they genuinely struggle with defending their box. Just watching Sports Scene, they kind of showed highlights this season, and they seem to be struggling with cross balls. They seem to be going man for man marking, but they've got strikers kind of marking almost the best headers of the ball in the opposition team and stuff like that. It seems all really disjointed. So I would be trying to take advantage of that. Whether you keep Kieran Brown in purely for the long throw, for that alone, as a bit of a weapon to get more balls into the box to cause them issues, I don't know. But I think if we can target that, I think we'll get plenty of joy out of it. And I don't think Ross County have enjoyed playing us particularly because of our style of play and us being a bit more direct and stuff like that. So if we, I think I'd like to see us mix it up a bit on Friday night, and obviously when we do have possession, try and play, but try and get balls in the box, try and get crosses in. That's why I would maybe go with Josh Mullen. Still, as you say, going up to his former club, I think it was a bit, there's maybe a bit more to it with him leaving Ross County. So I think he'll go up there with a bit between his teeth and he'll want to impress. But for his delivery alone, I would get him in for the crosses he'll put in. And I would have both wingers on. I'd have both him and Forrest in the team to start for that reason. Being able to get crosses into the box and make their defence try and defend. And I think if we can do that, there's mistakes there. It's a bit like when we played Dundee United. I think there's mistakes in their back four. And I think we can take advantage of that.
I suppose the one thing is, looking at Ross County, I think the boy Randall came off injured at the weekend. Right back, I think. So he's probably going to be missing. Whether that means they bring in the boy Chamarco that they signed from Inverness, if I'm correct in saying that. Yep. He's obviously someone that we can possibly get at, so I'm kind of inclined to agree with you, Ewan.
Got sent off against us in the home game, Chamarco, so I mean, proving that he can potentially be a weak link.
Other one to watch probably for Ross County is Billy Mackay. That's the one. I think he always causes us a few issues up there. So again, like I kind of mentioned earlier, if we can do the basics right defensively, I think we can get at them. But it's whether we do the defensive things right or not. And I think the gaffer will be working extremely hard with the defence this week ahead of the game, because it's vitally important we do the simple things right in this one. Anyway, predictions, like you said, Callum, you've not been here for a few weeks to give your prediction in person, so we'll go with you first.
2-0 Livi.
Okay. Ewan?
Again, we'd normally expect a big build-up to Bruni's prediction, but he's been very straight to the point the last couple. I'm going for a clean sheet as well. I think the team will have the bit between their teeth going up there on Friday, and I think we'll be able to take advantage. I'm with you, Bruni. I'm going 2-0.
Right. This is going to come across really negative, but there's thought behind it. I'm going to go reverse psychology, because all season I've predicted draws and wins. So I'm going to predict us to get beat, but please don't abuse me for it on Twitter or Facebook. I'm thinking long-term benefits for the football club, not for me in the league. I'm going to take one for the team here. So I'm going to go Ross County 2, Livingston 1. And hopefully, if it works, I'm going to continue with that trend throughout the season. So yeah, 2-1 Ross County for me, with the caveat that I'm hoping it goes well.
I'd just like to say, you know how you said don't abuse him on Twitter? Well, just let you know his DMs are open. So feel free to drop into those and give him a bit of stick. By the way, you lot need to get some correct predictions, because I'm running away with it this season. I'm absolutely flying.
just quickly before we finish, I know we're kind of rushing to get finished now, because it's been quite a long one tonight. Quick one: if the result does go against us, fingers crossed it doesn't, is it then time to panic?
I think the next 4 games, come to me after the next 4 games, because it's Ross County away, and then I'm sure it's, off the top of my head, it's Dundee United and St Mirren at home.
And then I think it's Hamilton away.
Hamilton away, yeah, you're right. So they're massive 4 games. I think if maybe we're talking anywhere between 6, 8 and 9 points in those games, I think that's a very good return. If we get less than that, then I'll be worried.
What about 7 points, Bruni?
7 is okay, Ewan.
I was waiting on that.
Between 6 and 9.
Yeah, anyway, yeah, absolutely. Let's hope we get a good result up in Dingwall. Massive game. Hopefully we can go into that international break on the back of a really good and positive result.
That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. To check out all our weekly content, go like our page on Facebook and Instagram, and hit follow on our Twitter. They can all be found by searching Talk Livi.
You can also find all of our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube. Just search for Talk Livi, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you though, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode that we've done over the last few years.
So yeah, that's it for another week. Thanks again for you all for listening and continuing to support us. Quite a long one this week, a lot to talk about and get into. But for now, from you and Callum and myself, we hope you have a great week.
Livingston, a love will never die. West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Ambervale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston. Yamanville, Lion Roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the